My neighbors called CPS on me for letting my kids play outside. The officer's reaction when he saw our backyard left her speechless. I, 34M, never thought I'd be the subject of a CPS investigation. I'm a single dad to 2 kids, 7 and 5, and I work from home as a software developer. My wife passed away 2 years ago, and since then, I've done everything I can to give my kids a normal, happy childhood despite our loss. Last Tuesday started like any other day. It was unusually warm for April, so I set the kids up in the backyard after lunch. They were playing in the sprinkler, building mud castles, and generally being loud, happy kids. I could see them clearly through my home office window while I worked, and I checked on them every 15 minutes or so. They know the rules: stay in the yard, don't go near the gate, and come inside if they need anything. Around 3 p.m., there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I quickly saved my work and went to answer it. Standing on my porch was a man in plain clothes who introduced himself as an officer from Child Protective Services. My heart immediately sank to my stomach. We received a report of unsupervised children playing outside for an extended period, he explained, his expression neutral. Mind if I come in to discuss this? I was in shock, but managed to invite him inside. As we sat in my living room, he explained that a neighbor had called to report that my children were neglected and dirty while playing unsupervised in the backyard for hours on end. The neighbor claimed I was an absent parent who regularly left them to fend for themselves. My kids are in the backyard right now, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger bubbling up inside me. I've been watching them from my office window all afternoon. I work from home specifically so I can be present for them. The officer nodded and asked if he could see the backyard setup. I led him through the house to the back door, explaining as we walked that I'd spent the past year turning our backyard into a safe play space for the kids. When I opened the door to the backyard, the officer stopped in his tracks. What he saw was the result of countless weekends of hard work. A fully fenced yard with child safety locks on the gates, a large sandbox with a cover to keep animals out, a vegetable garden my kids helped plant, a small splash pad I'd installed myself, a treehouse with safety rails that I'd built with my dad, and various outdoor toys organized in weatherproof bins. My kids were happily digging in the mud kitchen I'd built from reclaimed pallets, their faces smeared with dirt, but wearing huge smiles. They looked up when we came out, waved enthusiastically, then went back to their cooking. The officer's serious expression slowly transformed into a smile, then a chuckle. "This is what the complaint was about?" he asked, gesturing to my mud-covered but clearly happy children. "This is probably the most thoughtful backyard play space I've seen in years." He walked around, noting the safety features I'd installed, asking about my supervision routine, and even complimenting the treehouse design. My kids, naturally curious, abandoned their mud pies to follow him around, explaining their favorite parts of the yard. "And Daddy can always see us from his computer," my youngest added helpfully, pointing to my office window where my desk was clearly visible. The officer knelt down to their level. "Do you guys like playing outside?" "It's the best," my older one declared. "Inside is boring, and Daddy says fresh air makes us sleep better." After chatting with the kids for a few minutes, the officer asked them to go back to playing while he spoke with me. We went inside, and he started filling out his paperwork. "I'm closing this case immediately," he said. "Not only is there no evidence of neglect, but quite the opposite. Your children are clearly well-adjusted, happy, and being raised in a loving environment." He paused, then added, "Between us, I think whoever reported this might have some misplaced ideas about childhood." He explained that some people have forgotten that kids need unstructured outdoor play and that getting dirty is part of healthy development. Before leaving, he gave me his card and said to call him directly if I had any future issues with complaints. After he left, I sat down, shaking with a mixture of relief and lingering anger. Who would report me? And why? It didn't take long to figure out. The next morning, while in the front yard retrieving the mail, my neighbor from 2 doors down approached me. She's in her 60s and moved to the neighborhood about 6 months ago. "Your children shouldn't be out there screaming all afternoon," she said without preamble. "And they're always filthy. It doesn't look right." I took a deep breath before responding. My children are playing, not screaming. And yes, they get dirty because they're children enjoying outdoor play. She sniffed disapprovingly. In my day, children were clean and quiet. And they certainly weren't left alone outside. They're not alone. I watch them from inside while I work, I explained, trying to remain calm. And the CPS officer who visited yesterday had no concerns about my parenting. Her eyes widened slightly. She clearly hadn't expected her call to be traced back to her so quickly. "Well," she huffed, "I still think proper children should be clean and quiet. And I think proper neighbors should mind their own business," I replied, immediately regretting my sharp tone, but too frustrated to apologize. She turned and walked away, clearly offended. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat on my back porch looking at the yard I'd created for them. The toys scattered about, the half-built mud castle, the treehouse my wife had helped design before she got sick. This space was more than just a yard. It was where my children found joy after losing their mother. It was where I could watch them laugh and play while still managing to work and provide for them. The next day, I decided to be proactive. I baked a loaf of banana bread, one of the few things I can make well, and took it to each of the neighbors on our street, including the woman who had reported me. I briefly explained that there had been a misunderstanding that led to a CPS visit, but that everything was fine. I invited everyone to an impromptu backyard barbecue that weekend so they could see our setup and meet my kids properly. Most neighbors were surprised and supportive. A few even offered to help with the kids if I ever needed it. The woman who reported me accepted the bread stiffly but didn't commit to attending the barbecue. That Saturday, nearly everyone on the street came over. They admired the backyard, the kids made new friends, and several neighbors commented that they wished they'd had a space like this when their children were young. The reporting neighbor didn't show up, but her next-door neighbor pulled me aside. "Don't take it personally," she advised. She did the same thing in her last neighborhood. Her husband was a strict disciplinarian, and she raised 4 children who rarely speak to her now. She doesn't understand how parenting has changed. The barbecue turned into a monthly neighborhood tradition. More importantly, it created a community of people looking out for my kids. Now, when they play outside, there are multiple sets of eyes watching out for them, not in judgment, but in support. As for the reporting neighbor, she gradually softened. It started with small waves when we passed each other, then progressed to brief conversations. About 3 months after the incident, I noticed her watching my older child helping me plant fall vegetables in our garden. "Your tomatoes look good," she commented over the fence. My husband used to grow them. It was the first personal detail she'd ever shared, and I recognized it as an olive branch of sorts. "Would you like some?" I offered. "We have more than we can eat." She hesitated, then nodded. When I brought over a basket of vegetables later that day, she invited me in for coffee. Her house was immaculate but lonely, full of pictures of children and grandchildren who, as my neighbor had suggested, rarely visit it. "I may have been hasty in my judgment," she said eventually. Not quite an apology, but close. "My children weren't allowed to get dirty or be loud. My husband insisted on it." She looked down at her coffee. "They don't bring my grandchildren to visit." In that moment, I saw her call to CPS differently, not as an attack on my parenting, but as a reflection of her own regrets and isolation. "The kids and I are planting pumpkins next weekend," I said. "They'd love some help if you're interested." She didn't accept immediately, but 2 weeks later, she was in our backyard in gardening gloves, patiently showing my youngest how to properly space seeds. She still occasionally comments on their volume or mess, but now it's with a hint of wistfulness rather than disapproval. That CPS visit, which initially felt like the worst kind of invasion, ultimately helped build a support network I didn't know we needed. My kids now have a street full of surrogate grandparents, aunts, and uncles, and I have neighbors I can call when I need help. Sometimes I think about the CPS officer's face when he saw our backyard. His reaction affirmed what I've tried to create for my kids: a childhood with freedom, creativity, and yes, plenty of mud. In trying to protect that, I accidentally created something even better: a community. And on days when I miss my wife most acutely, when solo parenting feels impossible, I look out at my kids playing in the yard she helped design, surrounded by neighbors who now feel like family, and I know we're going to be okay.